Hello and welcome to the webinar presented by Maryland MGMA in collaboration with Connecticut MGMA, Delaware MGMA, Massachusetts Rhode Island MGMA, New York MGMA, Pennsylvania MGMA, and Virginia MGMA. My name is Julia Alenko and I will be your host. Today's presentation is led by Brenda Burlett. Brenda Burlett began her career in nursing prior to obtaining her bachelor's in healthcare leadership. At this pivotal point, her focus shifted towards marketing and strategic planning, where she has over 16 years of experience in the healthcare industry. Initially, she served as a physician relations specialist in a hospital healthcare system before emerging in the private sector of physician practices. In 2007, she established Savvy Marketing Solution, combining her clinical background with the business development and marketing experience from a variety of healthcare venues. She brings an astute understanding of strong expertise in the niche of healthcare marketing and public relations. Before we get started, I would like to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate in today's web event. The viewer window is on the right and allows you to see everything the presenter is sharing on their screen. The control panel is on the left, and that is how you can participate in the webinar. The audio panel provides audio information. By default, you have joined the webinar using microphone and speaker. If you prefer, you can join the audio using the telephone by selecting Use Telephone under the audio dropdown. The dial-in information will display including the audio pin. During the presentation, you have the ability to send questions to our staff through the chat box found on the left side of your screen. Simply type in your question and click Send. At the end of the presentation, we will do a question and answer section to answer as many questions as we have time for. As a final reminder, we are recording today's webinar, and you can view the recording of this webinar on the participating MGMA website. Please welcome Brenda Burlett.
Thank you, Julie, very much. As you noticed from my bio, I'm a nurse by background. So one of the things that is very dear to my heart is really working with patients and educating them. And so today's topic in the consumer's journey is very important in all aspects and components of healthcare. So we're going to talk about what is the consumer journey and the touch points. We're going to then discuss a little bit about customer service and the satisfaction's role in this journey. And then I really want to get into the knit and grind of the online tactics to help engage. So let's get going. So the healthcare industry is actually still undergoing a lot of transformation, and we have seen a lot of increased competition. We've got new reimbursement methods and care delivery models that are impacting our customer engagement and their satisfaction. We've got the additional regulations of the Affordable Care Act, the increased enforcement of HIPPA. We got the explosive growth of the internet and technologies that actually interface and have changed even the consumer's behavior. One of those being, the star ratings and online reviews. So one of our most important goal is actually having a more positive and seamless engagement of the patients and the providers. And this is absolutely necessary. From this point, it's just not an option not to be doing it. So the decision path. So let's go through this, the customer decision journey. So the customer journey starts with an awareness stage. It goes into a consideration stage. It goes into a decision selection stage, then the trial stage, and then the advocacy stage. So you as a practice want to be aware of all of these stages, and you want to be doing everything that you can do to actually engage and capture that consumer. That is what is ultimately going to lead in your increasing your revenue, adding on more patients, and growing your practice. So let's look at the awareness stage here in activating. The customer is actually experiencing symptoms or having a problem, so they're going to start researching. They need to research to understand. The next stage that they're doing in their consideration stage is they're engaging. So they're going to now define the problem, and they want to understand all their options of treatments. They want to know where they can go. They want to know what they can do, and etc. So then we go into the conversion stage, where actually the customer now has compiled all of their solutions. They understand their vendors. They understand what they need to do to make the decision. So they're going to actually make a decision. And in the close stage, where this is the trial stage, they're going to become a patient by scheduling an appointment or enacting on some type of initiative by buying something. For our sake, we're talking about actually scheduling appointments and getting the patients in the practice. Then we're going to have the delight stage. And this is where you want the consumer to really be an advocate of your practice. You want to gain their loyalty. You want them to be able to provide word of mouth and endorsement, such as reviews, the social media, testimonial. So these are all the aspects that we want to take into consideration, and we want to capitalize and grow our practice. So the marketing objectives and the strategy in using this formula is engaging. And in that engagement, you need to be engaging through the web, the social media, and also making sure that all your content has relative keywords and etc. for the web search. Then you want to be able to educate them. And that's actually one of the easiest things to really do for physicians, is educating and building brand awareness through the content and with content on all different types of platforms. You want to then encourage, and you use call to actions with your content to help them, to encourage them to come to your sites to do, and so that you can capture them as a patient. And then, of course, is the conversion, and that's making sure you have a very clear path for the users to act on and to be able to become a patient. And one of those is online scheduling. So we're going to cover these things in a little more detail. So what is the customer journey? It's understanding their journey, and it's being able to ultimately increase the practice profits by engaging those prospective and making them a current patient. This is just a little thing, looking at all of it, but you got to know where the patient is and to be able to communicate what you need to do. So the beginning of this is for the customer experience. It actually can start anywhere for where their map is. I think in this day and age, it is basically online. That's why we are going to talk about the online platforms and initiatives. But maybe they are also initially where they're actually having a conversation, and the actual engagement starts on the phone, or and then on the front desk. If you have online scheduling, they haven't even actually interfaced with anyone personally and verbally until the front desk. So you just want to make sure that every single touch point you're looking at. So the online touch points are going to be just by search, the internet, your web page, blogs, profile pages, grading sites, just to name a few. And then when they actually get into your practice, what are they? You've got your prior to visit. Have you sent them? Are you using online scheduling? Are you actually using on the website where they can upload their forms, patient portals, Phreesia, some type of a technological platform and process. And then you're going to have your waiting area, your reception. Then the patient's going to go to the exam room. They're going to be, interacting with your MA. Then they're going to probably have their interaction with one of the providers, whether it's a mid-level, whether it's a physician, and then they're going to have their follow-up care with you, or they may be going out and having be referred to X-ray or labs or etc. So all of those are actually touch points that really have to be looked at for your practice. Then following up with their journey? Are you having any correspondence? You've got follow-up calls, reminder calls. You've got patient portal emails. Hopefully you've got them on board that you can be engaging with them with newsletters and e-newsletters. So you've got all those different types of correspondence that you can take into consideration. So I think that actually everything surrounds around patient satisfaction, and you need to be able to utilize these additional tools, but you need to show that you care. You need to start there. So we've also found a change is that's hitting our revenue is the impact of the insurance, the consumer assessment of healthcare providers. So actually the bottom line is going to, in moving forward, is that satisfaction has to play a role in your practice, because those measurements are going to be utilized more and more, even on the financial. We're also finding that there are less employers that are actually providing insurance, which makes it even the patient experience even more important, because those patients are really looking at and doing some shopping around. So we know that revenue can increase and improve because if patients and customers are happy, they're loyal. They're going to stay with you. They don't sue. They are more likely to pay their bills. They are happy to refer to others. And insurance companies actually like the popular practices, not only where they need to be looking at, again, the cost of care, which is another factor, but we're not covering that today, but it's actually looking at the consumers and their satisfaction. So those are kind of just the basics. So now let's get started and looking and drilling down a little more into our online. So there are several sites online, the internet, that patients are going to. So it's often overlooked by practices that don't and want to really engage in this, but it's really here, and I think it's really important to embrace the opportunities that online reviews give us. And these are a few of the most trusted medical reviews. Is Yelp is used, and it's very high. HealthGrade seems to also be very prevalent. RateMDs, Vitals, then you have ZocDoc, and then we have lots of others which encompass about 6%. So these are the ones that you really want to make sure that you're on your radar and utilizing to help bring in patients. So another factor is that SEO, Google actually has an algorithm, and they actually have a algorithm that they look at. So there are features and things that you need to be quite aware of and help facilitate your real estate that's online to be the most effective, because consumer behavior is being evaluated, such as, if you have links for the consumer to go to, if you have consistent content, you want to show that you're a thought leader. You have to use key-rich meta tags. You need to be mobile friendly and responsive. You need to have highly specific landing pages for those consumers to go to, because the consumer's behavior, if it's not valuable for them, their behavior is going to show, and that is why the Google's algorithm is going to pick up on these things so that it's going to help your ratings. Social signals, age of the site, keywords in your UL, and there's just a lot of other factors that are really important. So if you have someone that's helping you and your practice in looking at these features, it's going to help your online image. So helping patients to review you, obviously you want to do the best that you can do, but you want to help the engagement by claiming your sites, personalizing your profile, providing pictures, providing great ways to get to you, having a call to action on some of these sites like Yelp. Um, we also suggest that, in your practice, you can actually have cards or materials, postcards that you can hand out to make it easy for your patients to get to do reviews for you. You want to have links on your emails. You want to be able to have your social media page to be able to review. Facebook is really great. And promote your offline presence. Promote your online presence offline by having these campaign cards. So the benefits of reviews, they're really, really helpful. Not only can you look at, what the positives, but you have an opportunity for a win-win for even the negative. You can able to accurately assess what certain patients and demographics, how they're responding to your practice. Now, we all know there are some outliers out there that are just ranting and raving, but what you also can do on these is have an opportunity to educate anyone that's viewing those, and so then you're promoting a very positive image on these profiles. And I found this little quote: choosing a physician is not like choosing a movie. If you pick a bad movie, you might have wasted a few dollars and a few hours. But if you pick a bad doctor, your health and well-being can be at stake. And this was actually something that was posted with a physician that I thought was really beneficial. And having some things posted that that it is important to portray the positive, but you want consumers to also understand you take this seriously. Online reviews give your patients a voice. So by acknowledging them and encouraging them, that also helps to reflect positive on you. It also can be a way to create some meaningful dialogue. Facebook, we really look at that into where we're doing engaging with the consumers and trying to promote education, positive experiences. They know that you're not afraid. So you can generate and create surveys and insightful blogs or the media post. Encouraging the reviews is really important. And so I know oftentimes one tactic is to actually, after the initial interview, is send the review. And then if you get a review that is positive, you can have an automated system where you are actually sending another email from that consumer and encouraging them to go to a landing page that can list all of the online places that they could actually promote a positive review. So reviews are really important to the patients. So you need to keep that in mind. It's a personal experience for them. They're going to look at bedside manners and the upkeep of the office. Oftentimes, these are things, not just the process. Well, usually it's the process even more than a physician. So you really want to make sure that you can take this negative and make any changes and having opportunity. So the last point I really want to make on the online reviews is to make sure that your replies are appropriate and timely. So leaving feedback is something that a practice can do to really show their heart. They can educate. So it's really important to take action and not to ignore. Ignoring it can actually speak volumes about you and can actually directly influence your reputation. So let's get to some customer service. And I know each and every one of you, customer service has been around. We've had all sorts of education, drilling on customer service, but it really is kind of the foundation. So people don't care how much you know until they know that you really care. And I think that is very, very important in understanding. This Connectco survey of 2015, it actually surveyed 512 patients, and more than 70% said health providers' websites could be more helpful. And I think that this is something that actually practices can step up, because there's so much information out there on the web. It's not all great information. It's not all accurate. So building content on your website for the consumer to actually come to your website and use it as a resource is a great way to build your practice. 80% said that the top issue is not being able to reach their provider by a preferred method. So then we also get into some processes and use of technology, and I'm going to address that a little bit later on. So also in this survey, 84% expressed frustration with finding what they were looking for on the provider's website. So again, look at your website, look at the navigation, look at it from a patient's perspective. Don't be looking at it just as what a physician would like or the practice thinks is what is most important to them. You have to look at it from the perspective of the consumer. And actually 50% of respondents, and I know that this has had to increase, they want to be able to contact in real time. So when you're looking at a website or you're looking at any other online real estate that you have where the consumer is finding you, you want to have those call to actions where they can just hit a button and call because they're using their phone, their mobile. You want to be able to have Yelp call to schedule an appointment and it connects. You want to have on your website, online scheduling or pop-up boxes for chat. So these are technological advances that consumers are growing to expect, and healthcare needs to step on and utilize them to help to grow. So, of course, the red carpet experience, we all know, is compassion, warmth, being considerate, putting the customer first, adding personal touches, having accessibility, and then being professional at all times. So making sure that your home is in order and your customer service aligns, then when you're doing all of these other initiatives to grow your practice, you are in line and you are not going to sabotage your growth. So self-scheduling is becoming a must. 77% of patients want to be able to book, change, or cancel appointments. And I know that operationally, this can become a nightmare for some practices. We've got physicians that want to have their own style of template, or they want to have control. But more and more, you are going to see that the consumers are going to dictate. And especially with the generations that are coming up, they're using the digital in all aspects of their life. If a patient or a consumer and a prospective patient wants to actually to schedule an appointment, they're looking at things after work in the evening and etc., they're not going to be able to get to your office. So it's really, really, I think, important in coming up that you get yourself in position with self-scheduling. This survey found that 72% prefer the self versus having the interaction on the phone or email support. So if appointments are the vehicle that actually drives your practice, then you need to make sure that you're doing this scheduling and it's really accessible and it's easy for the consumer, and especially those, like I said, those tech-savvy consumers. So in 2019, it is expected 64 of patients want to book and will be booking medical appointments online, and an estimated 3.2 billion in revenue value. So you don't want to be missing out on that. You don't want to be one of the practices that is not utilizing that. So in the scheme of doing and knowing where the patient journey is, if they're out there looking and researching, you want to make sure that you're able to connect with them and capitalize at that phase. So 24-hour scheduling is really also an option to fill in same day and next day slots that you might have empty. Patient Pop reports that 63% of the appointments scheduled online were from new patients, with 34% of those appointments scheduled after business hours. So again, just some of the information that we're seeing, we don't want to miss out on those opportunities. On Accenture, a study showed it takes 8 minutes to schedule an appointment on phone. I actually was just at a meeting recently where the call center was talking that it takes up to 12 to 15 minutes to schedule. And then if you're actually in your scheduling process, that phone call, you have a process where you have to verify insurances. It can be longer. Then you have wait time and you have that hold time, and that can be very dissatisfying to patients. So knowing and understanding what your process is and how it affects the patient, and if you see drop-offs on your call center stats, you need to look at how your scheduling process. So by offering them something easier and something more available, you are probably starting the journey out much more successfully. So this is the enhancement tools. This goes back to what the processes and what technological tools you have in place for that patient journey. Do you have it personalized? Do you have it where on the website you can have a chat where it can either call in to the call center during business hours, or do you have it to where they can chat with someone online during all hours 24? Do you have where your forms and your documents are available and they're very clear and concise and you're not overburdening? So again, this is looking at the tactics that you and the technology that you employ to capitalize at that patient's journey. Personalized communication engagement is very important. These are the automation features. One of I personally use Outmarket and Focus, but there are numerous platforms out there and companies, vendors that you can utilize to help you to enhance this experience. So, and we all know that safety and compliance is important, so please make sure that you do your due diligence when you are researching and looking for vendors to help with your practice. HIPAA, we all know and we understand, but consumers do want to know that their personal health information will not be compromised. So again, look at those vendors and make sure you are selecting the right one. So I think probably one of the most valuable pieces and the most valuable tactics that you as a practice need to utilize and throughout all of this customer journey online is content. So how are we going to look at that, and how are we going to utilize that in your practice to increase your patient and increase your revenue for the practice. First, you really do need to know and understand what customers want in the way of content and what's valuable. It does not mean that you are going to just do a whole bunch of advertisement. So really what I want to focus in on today is more on organic venues of building versus paid advertisement. If you get into a marketing plan that that is very, very comprehensive, you really need to know where you are, where your practice is in the niche of the community, what your goals are, and if you really do want to bring in paid advertisement, and you need to incorporate that into your plan, but you should have the organic components to building. So let's just do engagement. So social media is huge online. So you should have a Facebook page. You should have a Twitter page. You can use Instagram. Instagram is a little harder, but knowing who your end users are in what you post and etc. Facebook is one of the best features online. And you can be very active in building your community and etc. for posting. You use for education, you can still use the social media, but then you want to really look at adding blog articles and utilizing keywords and valued information for the consumer. When they're researching, they're going to find. So that means that your website, I do suggest that your website, you utilize that as your blog post, posting articles and great information, educational information. That way they will go ahead and hopefully look at your website for additional information. Then we get into the encourage. That encouragement part is by using very strong call to actions with your content. It means using sign up buttons for your newsletter, maybe to schedule an appointment or talk to a coordinator. This is all going to help us in getting to that conversion and getting those new patients. So building your consumer referrals with this content is you want to make sure that you have valuable information. 75% of the American public refer to online resources for medical advice. So previously I made a statement that the internet is full of advice, full of information, but not all of it's correct and really advantageous for the consumer. This is where you as a practice, as the physicians or thought leaders, can actually develop content and get it on so that you are starting that interaction and then trying to get those conversions of those patients to come to you. So you need to make sure that you are offering information that will present the answer to what the consumer's questions are. So if you are doing a blog, if you are doing landing pages, make sure that it's not just a sales pitch. Make sure it's valuable content. So these are some of the highlights for content that you need to take into consideration as you're developing it. Visuals, extremely important. Pictures and videos illustrate the content best. We're going to get into videos a little later. Diagrams, graphics, infographics, they're all very concise. They're very, very easy to follow and read. If you're doing articles, make sure you have images, make sure you do bullet points and etc. Because articles with images get 94% more attraction and click-ons. Make sure it's convenient, that the consumer can get to it conveniently. You know, making sure you have a YouTube account if you're having videos, host them on YouTube, get them on your website so that the link you've got your videos counts are going to count towards being on YouTube, but then so you help with SEO, but you need to have them, the links on your website. So a actual path would be you have something out there on social media, you do a link to your landing page where you can actually see if you can capture some of the patient's information, and then you've got the call to action button that's going to take you to the video. So it is adding maybe a step or two, but be very careful not to add too many steps because you're going to alienate the consumer. So make sure that everything you do, you want to emphasize some of the humanity of your practice. And when I say that, especially for Facebook and some of the social media, one of the things that providers are that the consumers want to do is to connect to the provider. They want to know some more personal things about them. So adding a little bit of a personal touch in an article or on your social media or on your profile, online profiles, is really important. I just finished up with one practice doing bio videos. And in our bio videos, every one of the providers talked about, and we had questions to make sure that we captured relevant information. It's not all about their accolades and where they went to school. You can have that listed on a page, but you want the actual video to be more personable so that the patient can connect. So having certain things that are, hobbies, sports, what they like about when they're interacting with the patient. Those are the things that you want to emphasize. You do want some brevity in your content. So one of the things, though, is that when you're doing that, you still have to take into consideration what SEO likes as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So time is valuable, so you want to keep the content digestible and welcoming. That's why avoiding these bulky paragraphs, making sure you use headlines and subtitles, you use bullet points, have diversity in fonts. I mean, you don't want it to look like a circus and be overwhelming with all this flash or things, depending on if it's on the internet, but you definitely want to make sure that you kind of segment it so it's easy to read. Keep your blog post around 500 to 600 words, but again, this is where SEO likes 1,500 to 2,000 words for white papers and etc. because they want to make sure that it has substance and it's not just fluff. Don't fill up with fluffy words. Make sure your keywords are in there so that it will attract with the algorithms. Use things such as ebooks, videos, podcasts, question and answers. You can set them up as segments or chapters or series that help to promote the consumer to follow or look for the next one. Those are very good tactics. So what are landing pages? I've used this term. Not everybody really maybe knows what a landing page is. Its purpose is for lead generation in which the user can take action on. You can develop these landing pages by using just your website, and then it's a URL on your website. You can use other platforms. I use also Outmarket again for some of my landing pages because it helps in naming the landing pages. It helps in the analytics. Your Google Analytics on your web page can still look to see how many people are coming. It doesn't always see where they go to if it's not within your website. That's why I use another vendor, because I can actually assess and see which buttons they click on for outbound. So There are some analytic advantages, but you want to be able to use the to link to these landing pages from social media platforms or email campaigns. That's a way to get them captured. Okay. Then we're going to talk about the call to action. So making sure that you have call to action buttons on these websites or landing pages, because you want to guide the user towards your goal, which is conversion. So you want to be doing things, and these are just a few examples, sign up now, view offers, research now, add to your cart if you're actually doing any type of sales things. Not gift ideas, unless, again, you're doing some retail. Download now, help and support. These are just some examples, and they're coming, and you can make them all in all different shapes, sizes, iconic images, and etc. Just make it easy enough for them to visualize and definitely see where you want to lead them. Then I wanted to talk about the social media posts, because I believe this is a very, very beneficial component of online and getting and building your patient referrals. But you need to do it correctly. So I have seen practices, they have someone internally, okay, they just post some things, and that's great. It's not timely all the time. It's not frequent enough. It's not at the right time of the day. But you know what? On a social note, your patients can go ahead and see some information and kind of stay connected to you. But it's not necessarily going to drive new. So then what you really need to do is you need to have someone who knows what they're doing, someone who can utilize hashtags, who can actually build your community. They know the appropriate other associations or communities that they can try to attract with. You need to educate. You need to have humor and inspirational posts. You need to personalize physicians and practice. You can also promote some of their accolades if they've gone out into the community and done a lecture, and then maybe you can then link that to maybe a video of the lecture. There are so many advantages to doing and utilizing the social media to help get connected to your website and to your practice. So don't overlook this, but do it correctly. These are just a few initial, and what I really like is encouraging and trying to initiate some actually engagement, some talk, some chatter, versus also just linking and using a link that, like you would have a link here to where they would get to your website. So utilize it effectively so that it really can capitalize for your practice. These are a couple other Facebook posts that I wanted to kind of show you. So when you see this, one of the things that we try to do is we utilize certain hashtags that have become very popular, and that's why someone who knows what they're doing, you're going to utilize those hashtags. We've got Wednesday motivation, and we'll do something that's very motivational, and we'll have images, because images really do attract and keep the attention of the consumer or the user. And then hopefully you're getting some likes, you're getting some shares that they're utilizing and putting them on their feeds and etc. Your Facebook, you've got the options where you've got these links. This one happens to be with a physician that is actually doing a video. So you're seeing these visuals even on your posts on your site that the consumer is attracted to. So optimize this and utilize them. So Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, I don't think is real advantageous for healthcare. I do think there's Instagram, especially if you're targeting really the younger generations, because there are a lot of people on Instagram no matter what. But again, it's figuring out and utilizing images that would be attract them to you. So that's really important. The landing pages, utilize holiday greetings, national news as it pertains to the practice, physician and staff kudos, practice announcements. Do repost, but make sure it's from accredited resources and you believe in them. It's somebody that you would support. So let's look at the videos in the customer journey, because I'm going to tell you videos are extremely important and you need to start investing in them. You do not have to have the grade A where it is all a commercial grade. You can have, actually many of the phones have great cameras. It's just the audio that has a tendency to be a little lacking in quality. But you can have some external phone adapters that can, or a video camera adapter for the audio that can really help and enhance that. So the awareness stage, you're going to actually increase your SEO if it's educational and informational content. You get out there, you use the videos because they love videos as the content. And what you're hoping then to do is share information, and you're going to get more social shares, and then you're going to watch your click-through rates, because if you have a call to action there where they can actually get to your site and your landing pages, then you're going to be able to monitor that and see. If you've captured information, then you'll be able to reach out with an email or a phone call, etc. In the consideration stage, the videos should be able to educate the consumer or the buyer as they are considering different solutions to their problems. So maybe you're going to go ahead, and if you have some type of procedure in your practice that would be beneficial to a specific treatment or diagnosis, then you want to have that. You want to share that information. So the first is really kind of just some generalizations. Then you want to get into some more specifics. And then, of course, the decision stage, you want to have videos that show how your service is unique and maybe differentiate from other solutions like case studies or testimonials. You want to make sure that the call to action is very specific to drive that appointment. Some of the how-to videos are really good, and again, that the consumer and the user can connect to. So I would encourage you to start utilizing video as a medium of your content. It has been estimated that 52% of the marketing professionals use video because they have found it has been the better and the best ROI, the return on their investment for their marketing costs. They're fun to watch, and they're useful for, the demonstrations, as I mentioned, presenting a story with a testimonial or a patient. These are things that connect, and that the consumer will be more apt to connect with your practice. So a few little more statistics. Using the video can increase the conversion rates by 65%. That's why it's so important especially in all three of those first stages, is utilizing them and then just making your content appropriate to what you want to do. It actually increases the use in social media, the landing pages, getting them to the landing pages. So, but make sure you focus on the consumer. This isn't about just promoting a doctor and what everything he's accomplished and etc. I think those are some of the worst focused videos, because you're looking for engagement, so you want to be able to do something that's making their engagement something of interest. So lastly, what I really want to kind of do is I want to do a case study to kind of show what you can do. Now, in this particular one, this is for an orthopedic practice, or actually even maybe a pain management practice that incorporates pain management and musculoskeletal. So this case study is a 60-year-old female that has chronic knee pain due to osteoarthritis. So this is kind of a chronic thing. For this particular individual, she's probably been living with it, but she wants to avoid surgery. So how are you going to capture her attention, and etc.? So a marketing goal is to raise awareness, making sure you're using keywords, and that you're utilizing social topics like living with pain, exercising for knee pain, home remedies for knee pain. Not that most doctors want to get into home remedies, but again, if it's something that you can still agree and support with, do it. Aging fitness, sports injuries. So these are topics that people are going to look at, research. So make sure that whatever you're doing, you're using the right type of keywords that are going to attract just this general awareness. Then you get into a consideration where the individual is researching maybe on getting some specific treatment options and surgical programs, or maybe specific providers. This is where you want to make sure you're using those keywords again: benefits of joint surgery, risk of knee replacement, recovering. Even though she doesn't want surgery, she's looking at and trying to figure out what her options are. So then you would maybe have physical therapy, specific physical therapy exercises for decreasing pain. You just want to get a little more specific in your content at this stage and have these things posted. Then you want to make sure that for the patient to select you, you've got that call to action. So then if you have these right type of content media, then you want to make sure that they have the ability to select and move on to this trial. So, these kind of work, in conjunction. Does your website have live chat? Do you have live messenger? Do you have a pop-up message box on your website to help make and give some direction? Then you've got the patient over and doing what they're going to do in scheduling an appointment. Do you have processes in place where you have a follow-up email with a thank you? Do you have an email where they can sign up for your newsletters? Or have you sent an email with a survey? And then actually that survey, like I mentioned before, can have evaluate whether it was a positive or negative on the rankings and the questions. And then you have an automated email that says, thank you very much for completing our survey, which would go to maybe your threshold level of what you think is positive and negative. And then the ones that are in the positive, their follow-up email would automatically say, thank you for completing this survey. We appreciate all of your positive comments. Would you be willing to post on a social media or an online venue? And you have the call to action button that will push them to that, so that that's a no it's not really any extra tasks for them to think about, log out and etc. So you're going to want to make sure that you do, if they have surgery, after surgery, do a follow-up call. If they've gone to physical therapy, how are things going? A get well card, etc. So make sure that you're connecting and have things in place that are going to promote ongoing engagement. And then if they become an advocate of you, ask them, maybe get them to come in and do a video for you to utilize. So, you can see that all through the patient journey, where and what tactics you really can help to develop, to implement in your strategy to gain more referrals and more patients for your practice, which will then ultimately increase your revenue. So with that, I would like to say thank you very much. I hope some of this information has been some solutions for you in your practice. Whether you take one step or two steps, it's always really beneficial to at least take your first step to doing something that will enhance and work for your practice. I'm open to questions if there are any questions.
Thank you, Brenda. As a reminder again, if you do have any questions, please type them into the chat box and we will be able to, Brenda will be able to address those questions.
We've got a question that looks like it's being typed in, so thank you to the rest of you for your thank yous. I appreciate that. And so here's a question. You mentioned about reviews. Could you repeat that again about how you recommend obtaining reviews? So one of the things that I have done, and let me see if I can even go back there, is I like for the practice to be very proactive themselves. And I have gotten physicians and their MAs or nurses to actually understand how to ask for a review. And so we've taught that dialogue because you want to make sure that they're on task with it and they know what the right things are to say when they're asking. But one of the things that they utilize, the tool that they utilize, is a card. And I've made these like postcards before, and on the front side it has the practice information and everything. And then you can hand them to the patient and say, we would really appreciate if you would go online and share your experience, your positive experience. And so then you hand them a card, and they can actually have where the URL, you can get these G codes, QR codes, and so that they can use their phone to go right into them. You can have posters in the exam room where they can actually go in and do that. You can have the URLs listed here where they can just type. These are where you're actually interacting right then and there. You know the patient would be a good one. So that way you can control that you're not giving it to everybody. So then what you can also do is, again, for after visits, is you utilize your emailed surveys. And with your emailed surveys, you find the ones that are positive. You can set up a system to where you can do it manually if you're just looking at that and then sending them an email. I prefer making and having an automated system. That's where I mentioned the one vendor I use, which is Outmarket a lot, that you can have it set up where the emails go out automatically, the surveys are recovered, they're tabulated, and then they are actually, you can differentiate which ones are at a 3 and above and which ones are a 3 and below, and then the system will automatically send them an email asking them if they would go online, and it shares with them the call to action button that links to the online. You want to make it as easy as possible. Another option in doing in person is having these iPads in your office and having the MA. It kills some of the wait time in the exam room, but your MA could even be asking him, you know, how would you be open to doing an online view, and you can just get in right then and there and get the connection. Now, what I am going to tell you is, and there are services out there that do this, but what you have to understand is that most of these sites that do online reviews actually monitor the IP addresses. And so they will not, once there comes a time and they see the same IP address used for multiples, they're going to kick them out. So I've used services before, and then after a year, we found the problem. Now, of course, the vendors have become more educated to these changes that the online sites are doing, so they're using multiple IPs and they're changing around and switching around. But quite honestly, it is something that your practice can do yourself. I know it's like if you use Frisia, I've worked with Frisia in the practice that sets this up and does these reviews really good after a visit. So just look and make sure you're getting a vendor that will meet your needs and provide you with some results. Okay, so I have another question. How long does it take for these efforts to show results? So measurement, there are things that you're going to use for measurements, and how long will it take varies at where and what you're doing. Social media is certainly not an immediate that you're going to see a lot of revenue generating from it. However, I am a firm believer that even social media and Facebook connection has a PR benefit, and it has a benefit of showing that you are progressive. It shows the consumer, oh, this practice is progressive, they're online, they're on board, they get us. So there is that value. How you utilize your social media and what you get posts and getting them to your landing pages or your website, you're going to be able to see at intervals. You're going to be able to see, and maybe if you have a lot of content out there and you may see an influx right away, or it may take time. The other thing that I did forget to mention, because when you're measuring these things, what you really should be able to do is, if you don't have a really sophisticated analytics system, what your practice should do is use different phone numbers. Even if you have a call center, establish marketing phone numbers. Use those marketing phone numbers to be posted on your different landing pages, your different social media pages, so that when that phone call comes in to your call center analytics should pick up that marketing phone number. So you'll have the phone number and you'll have the number of calls. Then you can listen to see if that call actually did get a new patient scheduled, or if it's follow-ups or just questions, etc. But that's the measurement tool that you're going to actually see and be able to look for concrete new referrals. So make sure that you do utilize marketing phone numbers, because the consumer's not going to know, because your call center should be set up that those numbers just go directly in to your regular system. So I would make sure that you utilize different formats and monitor them. Do not expect immediate on anything, though, because you should allow yourself 3 to 6 months of having any one of these initiatives and then review them. So next question, how do you respond to a negative review, or should you? You should absolutely respond to a negative review. Not every site allows you to respond, though, but let's talk about Yelp, because I think ultimately that's one of the biggest ones, and then Google Local is another one. Make sure you have your profiles up to date, claimed, and everything in there. So when you respond, it should be extremely generic and not letting them know and prevent or having a HIPAA violation that you are actually saying that they are a patient. So oftentimes what I will do is say, thank you very much for sharing your experience. If it's positive, we greatly appreciate for that type of feedback. Even if it's negative, I will say thank you for sharing this feedback. If there is something in that negative review that I can address generically, like let's just say they waited on the phone for 20 minutes, or if I can respond generically to a process in our office and use that as an opportunity to clarify our process and educate others, I do it. If it's all about ranting and ravings and it's just, I would just do a very simple, and thank you for your feedback. We look at feedback to help us make changes and look at opportunities that would enhance a patient's experience. We would encourage you to call our office with the phone number and speak to someone specifically. And that's how I would do it. Getting into a lot with, like, and I'm going to call them the nutsy ones, but not all negative are nutsy. And reaching out to some of those patients with negative, then as a follow-up for customer service, is huge. Sometimes those patients come back on to their negative review and do an update and change it. The office cared enough and asked me, and this is how they followed up. I would give them a 5 now. I've had that happen. So don't be afraid to address them. Don't be afraid to follow up, because it really can help show your service and your humanity for your practice. Okay, the next question actually elaborates a little bit more on that. How do you handle patients that want to just argue online? Do you think we should delete a particular angry post on Facebook? So, on Facebook, well, let's first go for the other onlines. If you're online, any place online, go ahead and address it again and ask them to call your office, that we would be happy to talk with you, and you can call such and such number. You can even give a name of a person, because that shows personalized. Okay, call this person and talk to them. And then I would drop it. I would not do any more. Even if they do something, I would leave it, because people are going to see through those really what I call angry people. And they saw that you did what you could to address it and that you cared. If it's like on a Facebook, I have not deleted. If they're making comments, you can't really delete the comments. If your Facebook is opened for comments, you can't delete it. At least you've not been able to so far. So I have left, no, I take that back. I'm getting confused. If they leave a actual review on Facebook, I have left, as long as it's not too bad, but I will look to see about follow up with it, and you can then address it in a positive manner, because again, people know that we're all human, and there's probably never going to be 100% of like absolutely positive, glowing. So people will see through one negative here and there. Now, I would say if your practice is only getting negative, I'd take down the Facebook, and I would look at what you're going to do, and probably you need to look internally and see what's going on. But if patients are actually like posting a comment, then we will go eliminate. I also eliminate and block patients or consumers, I shouldn't say patients, but consumers that try to promote things that we don't agree with. We block them and we eliminate. So you do want to make sure that you do that with Facebook. So hopefully that's all the questions I've seen so far that I've answered. If there's anything else, I'm still here. If you want to type in something really quickly, or I've got my last slide. It does have my telephone number. It has my email that that you can always get in touch with me. Oh, I do have one last question. Do you recommend a lot of call to actions? So one of the things that when I say, and trying to distinguish what is a lot of call to actions, you don't want multiple call to actions on one landing page unless you're giving them options to multiple options that they can pick one, but each one of them is going to get to you and be specific. So here's just something I was, like registration forms. So maybe you have certain forms and it has registration form, cancellation form, or this form, or the HIPAA policy. So you know that the individual probably wants to get to one of them at least, that you have that option and you make it convenient for them. If you are trying to do, let's just say it's an article, and we're going to do an article on a specific topic, one treatment to prevent pain, you're going to send them and only have a call to action to one article. You get them to that page, you see if you can, then you do a form, and you don't always have to use forms because patients can get aggravated and cancel out. But if you want to test this and see if they'll fill out a form that they will give you some information and you're asking certain questions that are valuable to understanding their behavior, and then you have the one call to action that says read article or download article. And it either downloads with a PDF or it takes you to the link on the website. And then when they get to that, they read it, you can actually have another call to action button that says read other articles. So there's a way that, especially if someone is looking for one specific topic and they want to keep learning more and more, keep them occupied and keep them within your whole algorithm of information, and so then you can keep them going. So I guess that's one of the things that is so important in building your library of content, reusing. You don't have to always reinvent everything. So that's how you work with that library of content and the use of.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brenda, for answering all these questions. These have been great questions coming in. With that, we will conclude today's webinar. Thank you, everyone who attended today. A reminder, the recording will be distributed to all registrants through email. If you attended today's webinar as a non-member, please inquire about membership opportunities through your local MGMA chapter. At the conclusion of this webinar, you will be sent a brief survey that will ask you to rate the webinar on a 5-star scale. A separate survey will be sent out to your email for a more in-depth look at today's program. That concludes our webinar. Thank you again for attending and have a great afternoon.